Thank you for joining me for this episode. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Dr. Mila Brujic, and we're going to be talking about bringing ease to your scleral lens fitting with ScleralEase on the OI show. Are you finding that being a business owner in optometry is getting tougher and tougher every single year? Here's the tough truth. For every hour that we spend with patients, we spend 2 hours on administrative work, from charting, working with our team for prior authorizations, inbox messages, and so forth. In fact, up to 70% of our team's time is non-clinical, and patients are feeling this disconnect. I've worked with virtual staffing for over 10 years, and when we started implementing virtual team members into our practice, it changed everything. And then when we found team, everything changed. They helped us choose and support the right people. Now a virtual team handles documentation, prior authorizations, patient communication, phone calls, and scheduling. For more time with your patients, more energy for your team, visit hireteam.com. That's HIRETEEM.com, hireteam.com to get you back in your practice in 2026. Dr. Brujic, it's good to get to interview you on the OI show. I'm
Yeah.
delighted to have you as a guest on the podcast.
That's awesome. Glad to be here, big guy.
I am delighted that we get to partner together in so many ways. The podcast has been a lot of fun, but today is a special day for us because we are highlighting something that you've been working behind the scenes. Usually, Brujic and I know everything that each other are working on, but this was kind of a behind the scenes. I didn't even know a lot about it except some early prototypes, and that is ScleralEase, which is been a game changer. I actually personally have been utilizing it in my ortho K lenses, but also with scleral patients. Very, very cool. Why don't you tell us a little bit, first of all, what ScleralEase is?
Yeah, so Dave, it's interesting. So I remember, oh boy, this was 19, 20 years ago when you and I were at a meeting and you introduced me to scleral lenses. It was actually you and Lynette Johns that were at a lunch with me. And I said, "What are those?" And I couldn't believe people wore them. You fast forward 20 years and it's become a pretty important part of our practice and an option for patients. But there's always these little things, Dave, that as you're well aware, we get into habits and we build these habits. And when we take a step back and we start asking ourselves, like, why does this exist? Why is there a different tool for applying a lens than there is for removing a lens? I initially, and this was two and a half years ago, I envisioned this tool that could be used that had the removal on one side and the applicator on the other side. And I thought, man, this would help me out selfishly in the office so much so that you don't have to worry about where the little plunger is or where the big plunger is. And then I thought about it from a patient perspective and I thought, man, this would be awesome for patients. So that's kind of where the impetus was for this. Looked it up, it didn't exist. And from there, the development actually started, which was kind of an interesting process as well, too.
So, at what point were you thinking outside the box and kind of start wondering, why do I have two of these tools in my office? I mean, this is exactly right. It's like I have a little cup in my office, which I have removers and inserters for my scleral lenses that I'm using. And like, at what point were you like, this is why do we have two?
Actually, David, it gets even more complicated than that. A lot of times we have three, because if you have multiple people that are using them in your practice, some people like the large suction
Mm.
without the suction on it. So they'll cut off the end or they'll buy it with that end off. Some people like the suction. So there's a multitude of differences. So I thought, why can't we just put this all in one tool? And that's exactly what happened. So for those of you that are watching, there's the removal is pretty easy. I mean, that's the part that was a piece of cake. And all I wanted to do was provide equivalence in terms of applicability or usability. And what we actually found were patients were coming back saying it was easier to remove the lenses. And I think because in the ScleralEase, there's just more substance to grab onto when they're removing it. It's not just a small, thin little handle that they're reaching for.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, for
what
people that for people that aren't getting to see the video, we'll leave a link in the description to go and look at the ScleralEase, and I would encourage you to go check it out because if you fit scleral lenses as a practitioner, or if you use scleral lens as a patient, you know that the little removers and the inserters, they're relatively small
small.
to your hand, but this
Yeah,
is a bigger component that you're holding on to for both the removal
correct.
as well as the insertion
Yes,
than what it is. And it's a little more substance where the devices we've used in the past have been a little more squishy. This gives
correct.
you some substance to hold on to.
Yeah. And that was done intentionally. We didn't want it to kind of bend quite as much, Dave, because we, like you said, we wanted it to have some level of substance to it, but we also wanted it to be easy to grab so that it's easy to remove. Because sometimes removal can be difficult for patients. So we wanted to, if we can, provide equivalence or make it a little bit easier, which we actually ended up doing. Now
Mm-hmm.
here's the other cool part. So there's actually two holes in the side of the scleralease, and those two holes in the side of the scleralease are built so that we can actually provide suction. For some people who like to apply the lens with suction, you just cover up those holes, put the lens on, and it'll suction on. If you don't like suction when you're applying the lens to the eye, then you literally just rotate the device so that you're not covering the holes. And there's actually two little flat pads for your fingers that make it just a little bit easier to grab onto. And from a dexterity perspective, it just makes it so this thing doesn't get quite as slippery when you're handling it. And it makes it easy if you don't like suction when you're applying the lens to the eye. So again, we've taken multiple devices and multiple functionality, and we put it all into one tool. So regardless of how you want to use it, you can actually use it however way you'd prefer to use it for both removing and applying it.
I feel like you're describing it like it's a complicated thing, like an iPhone. But once you pick up an iPhone, you just start using it and it works. And I haven't heard you describe it to me. I've just had it, and I'm like, okay, this is how I use this. This is what I use this for. But I guess if you're not holding it and seeing it, but it's not a complicated thing. It's like it's very intuitive that if I want suction, I hold it here, and if I don't want suction, I hold it here, and the top of it looks like a scleral lens inserter that we would utilize in office to insert scleral lenses. And it's actually, I think it seems, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems a little bit smaller than the scleral lens inserter that I have in my office. Is that true, or is it about the same?
It's about the same, but it appears smaller, Dave. And the reason why is it's kind of that double taper. So you have the first taper, then it comes out, and you have the second taper. So because of that, it actually appears smaller from the head. But there's one other thing that makes it appear smaller, and that is there's a visible lip that's cut out of the top. So technically speaking, if you take the diameter from that portion, it is
Mm.
smaller because it's missing a piece. Now, many of you may be looking at it and saying, well, why is that little area cut out of the very top where the lens is applied? And this was designed by clinicians for clinicians. This was designed by a clinician for patients. And you know that when we're fitting scleral lenses, sometimes we put lenses and they're oftentimes stored dry. So when you're placing them on the eye, you have to wet them first after they've been disinfected. And usually that's putting some type of multi-purpose disinfecting solution on it, making sure you're making it wet, making sure you're increasing the moisture on the surface of the lens. Then you fill the bowl of the lens up and you place it on the eye. But because it was stored dry, you may actually have poor wetting on the surface of that diagnostic lens when you put it on the eye. So you have to get an over refraction on patients, and if it's poorly wettable, it's actually difficult to do. So what we did, we made a built-in squeegee on this. So essentially, what happens is you literally just wet the end and then you squeegee it up and down the surface of the lens 4 or 5 times. Again, patient won't be aware of it. They won't feel anything, but it immediately re-smooths out the surface with a nice wet surface so that you can perform that appropriate over refraction. And for those people with
Mhm.
severe dry eyes that wear scleral lenses, this provides them an additional tool just to help squeegee that surface to help re-moisturize that surface for them as well.
Yeah, you certainly wouldn't do that without a scleral lens on, but it's safe enough that you would be able to do this. And I'm just thinking of whether this could be utilized. I fit, hundreds of have ortho K patients, And I think it could be used if somebody had dexterity problems for insertion of their ortho K lens and just looking at the diameter of the insertion portion. I think you could put it somewhere and have a patient be able to insert even an ortho K lens. So regardless of the diameter of the lens that you're putting in, and then obviously from the removal side, it could be utilized for basically any rigid lens. So that's pretty slick. And then that vented section. And so the other thing is, I know as soon as I get a case for my removers or inserters, it comes in these little plastic cases, and I'm always trying to fit it in there and shove it
Yes,
in the. And actually, I just throw it in my to-go bag, or it just sits on the counter. I think you purposely did something a little different with the case for
we
that
did.
reason.
We did. So the case, the actual plastic that it's held in, it's the exact same piece. So the top and the bottom are the exact same piece. So there's no top or no bottom to it. So if you lose one and you have another ScleralEase, it comes with a new case, so you can actually reuse that one. So again,
Mm.
same top, same bottoms. But it is very high impact resistance, Dave. So you can actually step on the case and you won't break it. We've actually tried to ride a car over the case and it didn't break. So one of the complaints we had
That's a
with
problem that a lot of patients are dealing with, is their cars drive over their cases and wreck their scleral inserters.
what we wanted to do is we wanted to make it so that the case was resilient to the things that people would encounter. We went a little overboard with the durability, but it works. It's good. It's better to be
That's
overcautious on the
right.
durability than undercautious on the
That's right.
durability, Dave. But it
Yeah.
does,
So why
it
why do
keeps
they
you
make
protected.
Tesla trucks bulletproof? Elon Musk said, "Well, if you could have a car and you could have it bulletproof or not bulletproof, which would you choose?" Right?
Why
If you could have
wouldn't
a
you?
ScleralEase case that could be driven over or not be driven over, wouldn't you want it driven over?
Why
And what
wouldn't
I
you?
like about it is it allows the patient to do more than just sit it in a drawer. Is they can sit it in half of a case and it sits up pretty well. But let's talk about cleanliness, like the plastic of this and the rubber or whatever it is. And
Yep.
I
So
know you've
Dave,
done a lot of research on the cleanliness of these things, and I remember back to my
yes,
residency when people were worrying
yes,
about the bacterial microbes and all that stuff with this. So how
yeah.
did you get into that, and what are you thinking there?
So there's two big pieces to this whole discussion. The first is this is all made with biodegradable materials. So all of this, when it's time to dispose of your scleralese, is totally 100% environmentally friendly and it's biodegradable, period. So it makes it very environmentally friendly. But the more important thing that you ask about, Dave, is, well, how do you keep this thing clean? When you look at the IFU, or the instructions for use, which we intentionally didn't put something in the package that you unfold and look at it, there's a little QR code on the box that you click on, and it puts the instructions for use on a computer screen for you so that you can read it easy. Because oftentimes people that are using scleral lenses do have lower levels of vision. So this gives them the ability to very easily read it on a computer screen or their iPhone or their iPad.
Also, environmentally safe. Would you rather have an environmentally safe scleral lens inserter or not an environmentally safe inserter?
Oh, so true, so true. But the way that this is intended to be cleaned is exactly the same as all the predecessor devices, which is with 70% isopropyl alcohol. So essentially, an alcohol wipe disinfects this whole process right here. So you just wipe any surfaces that you touched, let it dry, and then you put it back into the container. And that makes sure that every single time you're using it, it's clean and free of any germs or
Are
microbes.
you worried that that's going to ruin it within a week or two or anything like that?
Not at all, Dave. So this just cleaning with alcohol does not ruin it. Saying that, we kind of took everything into consideration, and when you think about, well, how often, like if you were to ask just a scleral lens patient, how often should you be replacing this?
Mhm.
The Scleral Lens Society actually recommends that they get replaced every 3 months. So we said, well, if this is supposed to be replaced every 3 months, just from a hygienic perspective, we're going to make it easy for patients to actually get that replacement schedule in place.
Motivate them. Yeah.
Yep. Yep, and have a 4-pack. So instead of just selling them in onesies, which you can buy a single one. There's actually a 4-pack that you can purchase as well too.
Yeah, and that's what I'm showing here. And it comes with 4 individual cases, and it comes as a 4-pack. And so this is kind of the sort of thing that you buy one of these, you're set up for the year. It encourages you to replace it, to be compliant, to have a new
Yep.
cleanse, ScleralEase. I don't think your scleral lenses are going to feel any more comfortable or anything like that, but you're going to know that you're getting something a little bit more hygienic at that point. And then what is approximately the cost? Do you have an idea of what patients are going to be paying for this?
Yep. So for a single device, it's about $9. And then for the 4-pack, again, which is kind of the more convenient package, you do get a little bit of a value. So it's $32 for that 4-pack. And that gives just a little bit of a value add for purchasing more than one, essentially.
Yeah, so that's less than $1 a week. Ooh,
Less
it's
than a
like
dollar a week.
80, 75 cents a week. That's a pretty good deal, man. All for the benefit of seeing clearly.
I haven't done that. I
Um,
haven't done that calculation to confirm it, but I'm gonna have to trust you on it.
yeah, and even cheaper if you buy the 4-pack.
Yep.
Very cool. So, but buddy, what have I not asked you, or what are the things that you want practitioners thinking of? I know at the recent Global Specialty Lens Symposium that we were at not too long ago, that we're talking to some of the companies who were saying that the starter kits that they're sending to their patients are going to
Yeah,
now start including this,
that's
just
right.
because it's comparable to in cost for them to be able to send it out versus two of them, right? When a patient goes and starts traveling and has to bring multiple different inserters and removers and those sort of things, it's such a hassle. Practitioners are going to be able to have one device in each of their exam rooms rather than 4 or 5 like I do. What haven't we touched on yet?
Well, there's just a few things, Dave. One is, people have asked me, well, like, I use a stand. Like, can I use this with a stand?
Right.
And to the answer that question, you can. So this is compatible with all the stands. Sometimes people say, well, I like putting a light at the bottom of it, and that's why I like the hole at the bottom, my traditional large suction. And
Mm-hmm.
the good news is we built this with that in mind. So those small holes on the side of the scleralese, you can actually put those lights right into the side, and it illuminates it from inside as well too. Sometimes people would benefit from utilizing a stand, but they don't necessarily want the additional kind of cumbersome like stuff that comes along with the stand. Well, the way that this is designed, Dave, the bottom portion, the small suction, you can actually suction this to a surface. And when you
Mm-hmm.
do that, you can actually use this as a tiny mini stand for the patient. So you put the lens
Mm.
on top, and as long as it's a clean surface, you can use it as a small little stand as well, too, where the
Yeah,
patient
I'm
can
gonna
approach it.
just repeat that in you described it, but just to hear it another way is the one side of the sclerales is the remover, and that's kind of like the small little suction cup that is doesn't have a
You got
vent
it.
for, but then the other end is the scleral lens, which is a little bit larger and does have the vent to it. So if you suction the small end down onto a tabletop, or if you raise it up and put it on a mirror or something along those lines, as long as it's horizontal, then you could just set the scleral lens right on side of that and have a built-in stand right with you, and you've got one device. The only difference would be is how high or how elevated it could be, but you know
Bingo.
we have people that put books down and different things to get it at the height that they're comfortable with. So it could be the sort of
Exactly
thing
right.
where somebody may just be able to take this traveling, may have something different set up at home, and work through that. And then the lights options, there's a lot of different light options that could really be helpful and could fit in with this. So
So we
very
designed it
cool.
for compatibility with everything, Dave. And one of the other things too, for those of you that are listening, you won't be able to see this, but for those of you that are viewing, you'll see the little hole, and you can see right through the hole. But where the hole is, it actually interestingly was designed to look like a little eye. So
It
you can
does look
actually
like an eyeball.
see it looks like an eyeball. And that was intentionally designed to do two things. One, provide a nice gripping form so that it's easy to grab. And the other thing too is that it just looks cosmetically kind of neat because it reminds the person that this is for their eye. And Dave, for those people that
And
are
there's two of
interested,
them. There's two vents that look like eyes,
correct.
just like a human.
That is exactly right, Dave. So saying that where this is currently available, contamaxsolutions.com. It's right on their website, or just Google ScleralEase and you'll be able to hit right to the Contamax Solutions website as well too. And it's available for patients and clinicians.
Cool. So practitioners can get this and have a slightly less expensive cost if they're wholesaling
Correct.
it and
Correct.
order a large supply and then be able to provide it to their patients and be able to make a little bit of profit for the
That's
hassle
great.
of wholesaling it in their office.
Correct.
But the suggested retail price and the price that they would be able to find it on the Contomac website is again what that price was, buddy.
$9 per device or
Hmm.
$32 for the 4 pack.
Okay. All right. Very cool. Well, this is really exciting, and we'll, of course, have several links for people to be able to reach out and get access to this on their own. I would encourage all practitioners, you'll start seeing these hopefully come through on all of the laboratories. If your laboratory does not already have it, I would encourage you to call them up and say, hey, please put these in for my patients, because once you see this, you'll want your patients to have it over the alternative. From a cost perspective for the patients, this is definitely at or under the cost of buying multiple differents. So it's an economical benefit. It brings ease to the scleral lens insertion and removal process. No pun intended. It's called ScleralEase. But also, it's resilient to driving over with your vehicle. It looks like an eyeball on the surface of it, and certainly we can, throw it away without concern for damage to the environment. So all of these additional things, it's green. In more ways than one. If you're not seeing it, the device is actually green, and it is green environmentally safe. So very cool, buddy. Awesome. I'm so glad that we got to hang out and talk about this today.
Ditto, Dave. Ditto. It was awesome catching up the community on kind of what's new with specialty lenses because we always, we spend so much time trying to perfect
Yep.
those fits, and we do so much work to make sure that things are fitting appropriately. But it's interesting, Dave. When these first became available, I was handing them to patients, and I said, "What do you think about this?" I wanted to get a general feel for what they thought. And the reaction and the response was unbelievable. And that's when I knew we really hit on a nerve with scleral lens patients because when we don't do it every day with two devices and keeping track of two devices, we don't have that pain point. But when
Yep.
patients do it, they just figure out how to do it, but they know that it's a pain point. So I specifically told them I didn't tell them that I designed it because I didn't want them to be influenced by that. I just said, "Hey, have you seen this yet?" And then when they put it in their hands, they said, "This is cool, a dual device." So there was an immediate like, "This is an
Pick
unmet
it up.
need. This is something that I wanted, and I'm glad that it's available now." So it was cool
Yeah.
to see that.
Well, it was nice for you to finally come up with something worthwhile. And no, I was just thinking about it last night is how cool it is and how rare it is for us to be thinking outside the box in the invention sphere. So I'm
Yeah,
really proud of
yeah,
that you getting the patent, going to all the
yep,
work because people don't have any idea.
yep,
Thinking up a device is only 2% of the whole project. So really glad that you pushed through and worked with the attorneys and the designers and the cutters and where you're going to source the material and all the work. So, and really, really also grateful for Contomac for seeing your vision on it
yeah.
and helping make
Agreed.
it work for patients. So very cool. Well, thanks again, buddy. And thank you for listening to this episode. Make sure to like and subscribe. Stay tuned. Check out the links below for more information on ScleralEase. And check out our socials because we have more information and tidbits about ScleralEase and information on Dr. Brujic's new invention, ScleralEase. Thank you.